Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Cigars and Crypto. You know who it is. It's your boy Noir, and I'm happy to have my new friend, Mr. Matt Rosen, with me. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm well, my friend. I can't complain at all. Can't complain. Now, Matt, I happen to be on a blockchain meetup for Philly online, and I heard you talking about Steem and Hive and the controversy behind it. So I had to invite you on my show, man. You are definitely a knowledgeable dude about Steem and Hive, and I'm hoping that you'll educate my listeners to the platform. So let's start with, how did you get into crypto?
Yeah. Well, I just I'm a tech nerd, so I just read various things, and I came across Bitcoin in 2012, and I just thought it was really cool, and I even started mining it on my computer at home, which you could do on your home computer back then. And I even mined a few whole Bitcoin at that time, but unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, depending on how you look at it, but that was around when my son was born and got a house, and I was like, Bitcoin was worth hardly anything, and people were like, "You're just wasting. It costs more in electricity than it's worth." So I just kind of forgot about that and stopped with it for a while, and then as the price went up over the years, I think I kind of was mad that I didn't just leave the mining program running. And so I just kind of ignored it sort of until 2017, when you kind of couldn't ignore it anymore.
That's smart. I think that's when a lot of people really begin to pay attention to crypto. I got in 2014, and I started out like you as a miner. Um, and I kind of dropped it because the difficulty rating got so high that my Antminer S1 wasn't profitable anymore. So I let it run for a few more months, and then I just kind of shut it off because then it just became a heater.
Yeah.
And, and so fast forward to February or March of 2017, I looked up, I said, hey, there are a lot of people talking about this now. It was in the news. I had seen a few articles and stories online. And that's kind of when I got active in crypto Twitter. And that's when I realized that there was like a massive community, like a huge movement around cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin technology. So,
And at that point, there was so much more than just Bitcoin.
right.
So that's when I got really excited and started all my work in the space.
I was telling someone a couple of weeks ago, man, you couldn't convince me that Namecoin wouldn't be the next Bitcoin. That's how far back, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you mined in a mining pool, I used to mine on a slush pool. Every time you mine some Bitcoin, you got a little Namecoin to go with it. So I was like, yeah, I'm holding this to the end, man. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be a billionaire one day. Da, 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 da. So it's kind of crazy. So tell me about your experience with Steem It, man. How did you become a part of that community?
Yeah, it was just one of those things in 2017. I just started looking into like, what is all this other stuff? And so I came across the Steem blockchain. I don't even remember how. I probably just saw a post on steemit.com, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Pretty cool use of blockchain and cryptocurrency. And I started posting, and then since I was a newbie there, no one read my stuff, and I didn't really earn much of anything. So I kind of started looking into how the whole thing works and how you get noticed, and I started what was sort of like an advertising business on Steem, and that started going really well as it went into the end of 2017 and early 2018, when there was the altcoin and crypto boom. And then the whole time that I was doing this, like all this stuff, my first thought was like, I'm a huge like Magic the Gathering player and Hearthstone player. So the first thing I thought of when I learned about Ethereum and digital assets and all that stuff was like, you got to create a trading card game. So that's why I built Splinterlands, which was originally called Steem Monsters. And at that time, there was no EOS or Tron or any of that stuff. So, and I didn't want to build it on Ethereum because, the transaction speed was too slow. And there were fees and everything. So I ended up creating the game on top of the Steem blockchain, which was we were kind of like the first game that used Steem. Um, and so, that's how I got involved in the whole world and very actively involved in it.
That's so cool, man. A lot of times I speak to founders and builders in this space, and they build things for three reasons. One, because they see there's a need. Two, because they love what it is that they do outside of decentralized platforms and they want to bring it to a blockchain. Or three, because they just want to get paid. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that your love for gaming, specifically Magic the Gathering, um, necessitated that you do something in a digital environment. How you wanted to take that playing card experience and translate it to something that can be done on the blockchain and shared with multiple people anywhere in the world. And I think that's really cool, man. So tell me about Splinterlands.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it kind of started like when I was a kid. I played Magic the Gathering real early on, and I still have a lot of those original cards, and they're worth a lot of money now, which is awesome. So it's like, I spent a bunch of money on this game, but now I have these collectibles that, even though I don't play anymore, they're not much. I have these collectibles that are worth a bunch. And then when I played online versions like Hearthstone, I spent a bunch of money in those games too, and now I don't play them anymore. And it's like that money was just all gone. So you lost that entire collectible aspect. There's no shops reselling Hearthstone cards or anything like that. So like I was saying, as soon as I learned about Ethereum and digital assets and what you could do, I was like, well, that's perfect. Then you could have a digital game, but still have like scarce valued collectibles. So we built Splinterlands, and it's very similar type of game where you collect cards, you buy like booster packs, and you get random cards. Some are more rare than others, and you make what we call teams of cards, and they battle against other players, and you gotta know what cards to use when. And you actually, so the cards themselves, there's a very active marketplace. It's one of the largest NFT marketplaces in existence, where people buy and sell the cards. There's thousands of dollars traded a day. And then on top of that, you can also just win cryptocurrency. Every time you win a battle, you win some cryptocurrency. We have tournaments with like over $100,000 of prizes paid out. So it's really like trying to combine the best of the physical trading card games with digital games.
Gotcha, man. Now, for my listeners, NFT is non-fungible token. That's the digital equivalent of a trading card, something that you keep, that you collect, that has value and or retains value over a long period of time, and you're able to transfer it the same way you would a baseball card or a football card of your favorite player. So I think that's really cool, man. I like how you did that. Now, unfortunately, I've never played Splinterlands, but I promise you that I'm going to have to try now that you've mentioned it, because I'm just a curious kind of dude. So that's
Yeah,
how
for
that
sure.
is.
Let me, send me your name when you sign up, and I'll send you a few free things to get you started.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. So one of the things we talked about, one of the things you talked about during the blockchain meetup, um, the controversy behind Steem and Hive.
Hmm.
I found that very interesting.
It is. It's extremely interesting. Even if you don't care or know anything about Steem or Hive, it's a very interesting story for the whole blockchain space. So real quick about Steem. Steem is what's called a delegated proof of stake chain. It was created by Dan Larimer, who also created EOS. So if you're familiar with how EOS works, Steem is very similar. So that means if you have Steem tokens, you can stake them, and then you can vote for who the block producers should be. So as part of my work, on the platform and developing Splinterlands, I've been one of the top block producers, top voted block producers on the platform for some time. So that means I'm very involved in pretty much everything that happens. And what happened basically was Justin Sun, who is the creator of the Tron blockchain, he bought Steemit Inc., which was the company that started and created the Steem blockchain. And where it gets a little dicey was that Steemit Inc., when the blockchain was first launched, they effectively gave themselves a vast majority of the tokens. It's what is known as the ninja mine, because the token was able to be mined originally when the blockchain launched, and they basically started mining a huge amount of tokens before they gave out information for other people to start mining it. So it was in effect really a centralized network, because they had the majority stake and control everything, but they had promised that they would never use that stake to vote for block producers or for content or do a number of other things. And they kept their promise up until it was sold to Justin Sun, which was on February 14th, Valentine's Day of this year.
So the perception and or reality of the Steem community was that an unspoken promise had been broken.
Yeah, I mean, it was spoken. I mean,
Okay.
it was posted publicly, many places, but that's all it was. It was just like, Dan Larimer and Ned Scott, the other owner, had said publicly that this is how it was gonna be used. It was gonna be used to fund the development of the blockchain, and it was not gonna be used to vote and all that stuff.
Right.
But that wasn't in code anywhere, right? They were still able to do it.
Right.
And then it's not clear, right? If someone buys the company now, do those promises carry over or not, right?
Right.
Our stance and the whole Steem community stance was yes, of course they do, right? And obviously Justin Sun's stance was the opposite.
So how did the Steem community react, and what did the Steem community do to engage Justin or fight back?
Well, originally, I mean, a lot of people were very excited. I mean, we were a little nervous, but excited, because Steemit Inc., I mean, they used the funds for what they said they were going to use it for, but they were just horrible. I mean, no one has anything good to say about Steemit Inc. I mean, they wasted all the money. They did little to no development. I mean, everyone was happy to see them gone. And here we have Justin Sun, who has a lot of resources, is able to market, is able to do all these things that Steemit Inc. couldn't. So everyone was kind of, pretty excited about this. But what we did want some assurances that they weren't going to use this stake to effectively, take over the chain. But what happened was, after the announcement came out, first of all, in the announcements, one worrying thing was they all talked about moving Steem over to the Tron blockchain, which it wasn't clear how exactly that would work, but everything was just talking about making, having token swaps and moving apps onto Tron. And so everyone was very concerned about that. And we basically tried to contact Justin or Tron for over a week with no responses at all. Like they did an AMA, which where they didn't answer any questions. So that was a joke. And so the whole community is like, well, how do we talk to these guys? And so what happened was the block producers, including myself, decided to freeze that stake, the Steemit Inc. stake, which was, I think that it was very controversial. A lot of people are saying, that it's their property and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, that stake was disputed, right? There were these promises made about how it should be used, and we needed to ensure that those promises were held up. And if we didn't freeze it, it would take them all of 2 seconds to publish a transaction and take over the chain, and then we couldn't do anything, right? So we needed to act fast. They weren't responding, so we froze the stake until we could talk to them, and that did get them to the table. So after that, they said, okay, we'll talk to you guys. They set a meeting date for 2 weeks or so in the future. We don't know why it was so long. Or at the time, we didn't know why it was so long. But the reality was that behind the scenes, they were coming up with a plan to get their stake back and take over the chain. And this is where it gets, this is where it really gets important and kind of crazy, is what they did at this point. They went to a bunch of exchanges, including Binance. It was Binance, Huobi, and Poloniex. Poloniex is also part owned by Justin Sun. They convinced the exchanges to stake their customers' Steem tokens that were held on the exchanges and use them to vote in all Justin Sun's block producers so he could take over the chain and unfreeze his funds. And it's really important to note that when you stake Steem, to unstake it, it takes 13 weeks. It's a 13-week process. So basically these exchanges locked up their customers' Steem for up to 13 weeks without their consent or anything in order to take over this blockchain. So the fact that that happened, that's probably the most surprising and an important thing out of this whole ordeal for the entire blockchain space to be aware of.
I try to tell people all the time, not your keys, not your coins. I would never leave any currency on an exchange, because exchanges are in the business of making money. And I am in the business of preserving wealth. And it's really sad that exchanges, especially big exchanges like that, would do that to their customers. Were there any fluctuations in the value of Steem during that 13-week period? Because I'm assuming that if you left it on an exchange, you were maybe trading it, and there may have been opportunities to make profit that you lost.
Well, the exchanges had to turn off deposits and withdrawals of the Steem token, obviously, because you couldn't withdraw it, right? Because it was locked up. And the unfortunate truth is that exchanges have to do that on a regular basis. Different blockchains have different issues from time to time, or the exchange nodes go down or whatever. They have to disable deposits and withdrawals. So I guess that's not a huge surprise to people. But here it was a case where they did it because of something they did knowingly. They knowingly locked up your tokens so that you couldn't get them out of exchange. It wasn't like a technical issue or something. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people might just think, oh yeah, deposits and withdrawals are down. That happens from time to time. And now they're in the process of that 13-week power down. But as you know, unless only a small amount of people of the tokens on the exchange will be withdrawn, so they only really need to have a little bit liquid. Right? So if everyone tried to withdraw their Steem from Binance right now, it wouldn't work. They wouldn't have it available. But the reality is that only a small amount is withdrawn. So everything's fine, as far as customers are concerned right now.
That's frightening to me, though, that they could do that. It's really scary. So what happened next?
So at that point, Justin had control of the chain. He unfroze his funds, then used his funds to vote for his own block producers. So he got his own block producers as all the top block producers that were running the chain. The exchanges all pretended like, oops, we made a mistake, we're really sorry. And they stopped voting for the block producers, but it was too late at that point because Steemit's funds were unfrozen and already used to vote out the other block producers. So at this point, what happened was, another thing I didn't expect was that the entire Steem community rallied to get enough stake together to buy tokens, to find people who were inactive on the platform and had tokens sitting around, to all come and vote for the original block producers to try to outvote Justin Sun and Steem and Inc. And it was actually enough. I mean, it was like a ridiculous amount, something like almost 50 million Steem worth that just appeared. And I say I get notifications every time someone votes for my block producer, and there was like thousands and thousands a day. These just people and accounts just coming out of the woodwork to support this cause and kind of overtake Justin. And it got to the point where it sort of was a stalemate. It was about almost equal number of votes, and eventually a number of large stakeholders and developers and block producers in the Steem community were just like, look, we don't want to be fighting with Justin constantly for this chain. So they decided that they were going to make a fork that is now called Hive. So they forked the code, just like, Bitcoin Cash was a fork of Bitcoin at a certain block. It just
Right.
was a forked version.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference, the only major difference in that version was that the Steem Inc. stake was taken out of the Steem Inc. accounts and put into a DAO fund where people can, propose projects, and if they get enough votes, they'll get funded from that fund. So it's basically ensuring that that stake that was supposed to be used for development of the blockchain would be used for that purpose.
Man, that sounds like a battle of the wills, brother.
Yeah, and the amazing thing, is really just the community, the power of the community. So the
Right.
vast majority of the people moved or are in the process of moving from Steem to Hive. And, hopefully and ideally Steem will just kind of be left as this blockchain that like no one really uses. I mean, there's a number of people who are still, there are a bunch of people who are going to use it just to try to get money out, right? That you throw up anything and people will try to get their money, make money off of it. And I think my guess is that Justin has been kind of pumping the price of Steem to try to keep it from dropping as a number of people are exiting. And then a really scary thing that happened, and another reason why if you have any Steem, you should get out of there immediately, is originally the price of Hive was higher than the price of Steem when it launched, which looks really bad for Justin. And that's because basically everyone was unstaking their Steem, selling it, and then buying Hive, right? So there's this mass exodus of funds from Steem to Hive. So the new block producers, which were all literally paid by Justin's son. I mean, he publicly offered to pay people who would be block producers and do what he wants. They decided to freeze the funds of a number of large stakeholders on Steem who were moving to Hive, so they couldn't sell their Steem tokens and buy Hive with it. So, now they're just literally freezing people's funds just because they're selling the tokens and they don't like that.
Wow, man. That's excellent. I love to hear people get together for a common cause to do important things. And the beautiful thing about cryptocurrency and blockchain as a whole is that you can be heard, your voice can be heard. And the defections from Steem into Hive sound like such a beautiful thing, man. You should write a book about that one day.
Yeah, if only I had the time. But
so look, man, let me ask you one last question.
Sure.
Where do you see cryptocurrency in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, that's something I think about on a regular basis, and I wish I had an answer where I said, this is what I think is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it really could go all sorts of different ways. And so I think the unfortunate reality is that the vast majority of involvement in cryptocurrency these days is just price speculation. And I think it's going to take probably longer than 3 to 5 years for that to change into like it providing real value to everyday people. But I think in the even longer term than that, eventually the dollar is going to fall apart. I think everyone can be very surprised about how long they can keep this running and how we'll look back and see 24 trillion in national debt and be like, wow, that was nothing. We might get into the quadrillions before it all collapses. I don't know. But at some point, I think, I'm very heavily into Bitcoin in particular, and I just think it's going to be like the new gold. It's going to be the new thing that people can put their money into when their currencies are failing. And I think it does an amazing job at that and doesn't need to scale any better or need any upgrades. As far as the rest of the cryptocurrency space with all the, decentralized applications, that's even harder. I think gaming is going to be the number one place because gamers, they're the right audience. They're generally more tech friendly. They're used to virtual currencies. They're up for trying new things. So if blockchain based games, hopefully Splinterlands among them, can really start to gain traction among the mainstream gamer community, I think they could be the first foray into getting like people to start knowing about and using decentralized applications. But I think that's more of a wild card, whether that or not that will happen, than Bitcoin becoming a store of value in the future.
Matt, I want to take a moment, sir, to thank you so much for joining me on Cigars and Crypto. This has been quite insightful. I am going to check out Splinterlands because I have to support decentralized projects. That's just kind of who I am. So, Matt, thank you so much, sir. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you. And, I appreciate having me on. And anyone who's listening, please try out Splinterlands and feel free to message me on Telegram or Discord. I'd be happy to help out if you need anything.
Thank you so much.